In 1991, a chicken appeared. Not just any chicken, a wood-fired rotisserie bird turning slowly behind glass, glowing under warm red light. Within a few years, there were more than 350 of them across America, backed by a country music legend and a fast food fortune. And then, almost as quickly, the glow went dark. This is the story of how one of the most recognizable restaurant chains of the 90s collapsed. Not because the chicken was bad, but because the chicken was too good and far too easy to copy. Let's rewind. The chain was Kenny Rogers Roasters, and it launched with a lineup most startups can only dream of. On one side, Kenny Rogers himself, the gambler, one of the best-selling musicians on the planet, a face and a voice America already trusted. On the other, John Y. Brown Jr., the man who had scaled Kentucky Fried Chicken into a global empire. Star power meet operating muscle, and the timing looked perfect. The early 90s were turning against greasy fried everything. People wanted food that felt healthy, or at least healthier. Rotisserie chicken, roasted over an open flame, skin crackling, not a deep fryer in sight, was exactly the thing. The concept caught fire. Roasters opened by the dozens, then the hundreds. Franchise deals were signed faster than kitchens could be built, the rotisserie spinning in the window like theater, and for a few golden years, the whole thing seemed to multiply on its own. It felt unstoppable. If you remember the brand at all today, you might remember it as a punchline, the glowing sign across the street in a famous sitcom episode. But behind the joke was a real business, moving real money, and for a moment it looked like the future. Here's the question nobody in that boardroom seemed to ask. When a business makes good money, other people notice. They want in, so what stops them? In investing, there's a word for whatever holds competitors back: a moat. A moat is anything that makes a company genuinely hard to copy. A secret recipe, a patent, a brand so loved people won't switch, a cost advantage no rival can match, a network that gets stronger with every single user. The wider the moat, the longer the profits last. A soda company can be copied in a lab, but not the century of feeling wrapped around one red can. That feeling is the moat. Or picture a railroad. You cannot just lay a second set of tracks beside the first one. The land, the permits, the staggering cost, all of it locks rivals out for a century. That is a moat you can see and touch. So now look hard at Kenny Rogers Roasters and ask the same thing. Where was the moat? What exactly did they own that no one else could get? A chicken on a spit over a fire. That was the whole secret. There was no magic ingredient, no patent on heat, no machine a competitor couldn't order from the very same supply catalog. The entire business was a cooking method as old as fire itself, with a celebrity's name bolted onto the sign. Imagine if they had locked down something real. A marinade no lab could reverse engineer. An exclusive deal on birds that no rival could match. A rewards program that made leaving feel like a loss. Any one of those would have been a wall. They built none of them. It was a beautiful castle raised on open ground, with no walls at all. For a little while, that didn't matter because they got there first. But being first only pays if you can defend the ground you took, and they couldn't. Boston Market, then called Boston Chicken, was expanding at a breakneck pace with the exact same idea. Home-style rotisserie birds, warm sides, that same healthier glow. Almost overnight, there were two nearly identical restaurants staring at each other from opposite corners. Then the giant woke up. KFC, the very company John Brown had once built, rolled out its own rotisserie line, launching it from thousands of stores that already existed. Every new rival was selling the same core product, and when everyone sells the same thing, there's only one thing left to compete on: price. Once a fight becomes a fight about price, profit is the first casualty. But the blow that actually killed the model didn't come from another restaurant at all. It came from the grocery store. Somewhere in the 90s, supermarkets ran the numbers and realized they could roast chickens too. By the hundreds. In the back. In ovens they already owned. And then they did something no restaurant could ever survive. They wheeled those birds right up to the front door and sold them for almost nothing. A whole cooked chicken, priced lower than the raw one sitting 2 aisles away. Why would anyone do that? Because to a supermarket, the chicken was never the point. It was bait. A loss leader. Sold at cost, sometimes below it, purely to pull you through the doors because once you're inside for a $5 dinner, you walk out with $40 of groceries. The chicken loses money on purpose. The store makes it all back on everything else in your cart, and that was the trap. Kenny Rogers Roasters had no everything else. The chicken wasn't their loss leader, the chicken was their entire company. And this was no fluke. The supermarket rotisserie chicken quietly became one of the most dependable loss leaders in all of retail. Grocers now roast and sell hundreds of millions of them every single year, priced to pull you inside, never to turn a profit. A restaurant whose whole name was built on that exact same bird had nowhere left to hide. You cannot win a price war against an opponent who is delighted to lose money on the one product you need to survive. Their margins didn't shrink, they evaporated. In 1998, Kenny Rogers Roasters filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The empire that had felt unstoppable just a few years earlier was suddenly sitting across the table from its creditors. It was sold off, passed from owner to owner, and quietly shrank. And by 2011, the last American location switched off its lights for good. In the country that made it famous, the glowing bird went dark, and that should be the end of the story. But it isn't, and this is the strangest turn of all. Because while the brand was dying in America, it was quietly thriving on the other side of the planet. A Malaysian company had picked up the rights, and across Southeast Asia, in Malaysia, the Philippines, Indonesia, Kenny Rogers Roasters was no 90s punchline. It was a popular, modern, sit-down restaurant. Hundreds of outlets, lines out the door, same name, same chicken. Completely opposite fate. What died as a commodity in a crowded American market was reborn as a fresh, aspirational brand in places where nothing else looked like it. The asset was never truly dead. It was simply in the wrong place. Same recipe, same theater, same glowing bird, dropped into a market that had never grown tired of it and never learned to copy it at the grocery store. Pick it up, carry it across an ocean, and a bankrupt American chain becomes a thriving Asian one. So what do you actually take from a glowing chicken that conquered America, died at home, and rose again overseas? Not that the food was bad. People genuinely loved it. Not that the founders were fools. They were stars, and they were serious operators. The real lesson is quieter and far more dangerous because it hides behind early success. A great product is not the same as a great business. A trend is not a moat. And a famous name on the sign will not stop a grocery store from selling your entire reason for existing at a loss 2 blocks down the road. And this chain is far from alone. Look closely and you'll find a whole graveyard of companies that sold something people loved and anyone could copy. Video rental stores, daily deal websites, one-hit gadget makers. Each one conquered its market fast, got copied even faster, and was quietly undercut by a rival with deeper pockets who was happy to bleed. Without a moat, being first just means being first in line to be copied. Kenny Rogers. Roasters was that warm, crowded, beautiful castle, and it never built a single wall. So when the whole neighborhood learned to roast the same bird, the only ground left to fight over was price. And price is a race to the bottom. The chicken was never the problem. The missing moat was. That warm red glow didn't fade because people stopped being hungry. It faded because anyone could switch it on. And that, in the end, is the difference between a company that gets one good decade and one that quietly compounds for a lifetime. That missing moat is exactly why this video is sponsored by MoatScope. Everything we covered, widening moats, compounding, quality at a fair price, is simple in theory. Actually finding those companies is the hard part. That's what MoatScope is built for. It rates thousands of stocks on the 2 things that matter most: how strong the moat is and how much you'd pay for it. Quality times valuation on one scorecard, so you can spot the widening moats trading at a fair price. Check out Moat Scope at the link below and go find your next compounder.